Let's admit it. There is a silent poison you drink every single day. You open your social media, and there it is. Your old classmate buying their first house, a 22-year-old showing off their new company, someone else announcing their perfect wedding. And in that exact moment, a voice in your head whispers the most destructive lie of our generation. I am falling behind. But what if I told you that this feeling of failure is just an optical illusion? Centuries ago, Japanese thinkers observed nature and discovered an unbreakable rule about success and time, a rule encoded in 4 different trees. They called it Oubaitori. And once you understand the profound meaning behind these 4 syllables, the anxiety of comparing yourself to the rest of the world will simply disappear. Pay close attention. From the moment we are born, society hands us an invisible script, an unwritten instruction manual that tells us exactly when the important things in our lives should happen. By 18, you are supposed to know what you will do for the rest of your days. By 25, you need to have a rising career. By 30, the whole package: the house, the perfect partner, financial stability, and of course, a life that looks amazing in pictures. We'll call this the invisible timeline, and it is the greatest psychological trap of our era. When your reality doesn't match this imaginary calendar, something terrible happens. You start looking sideways. You see that college friend celebrating a promotion, or that influencer your exact age making millions and traveling the world. And suddenly, your own progress seems mediocre. Your effort feels useless. You convince yourself that somehow you missed the starting gun, and now you're running a race where you're already in dead last. But I want you to listen to this very carefully. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are simply making the mistake of measuring your entire behind the scenes against everyone else's edited highlight reel. We have been conditioned to believe that success is a 100-meter dash where we all compete on the same track and under the same rules. We force ourselves to bloom when society's calendar dictates it, completely ignoring our own nature. And the result isn't success, it's total burnout. It's living with a constant knot in your stomach. Ancient Japanese sages understood that forcing nature to follow a human clock was madness. They knew that true peace of mind doesn't come from running faster than the person next to you, but from understanding your own season of growth. And to explain this, they didn't use complex philosophies, they looked at their own garden. It's time we talk about the true secret of Oubaitori. Imagine a Japanese garden at the beginning of the year. The air is still freezing, and snow covers the ground. In this seemingly lifeless setting, the first miracle occurs. The plum tree is the first to bloom. It doesn't wait for the weather to be perfect or for spring to arrive. In the bitter cold of February, it breaks through the ice and reveals its flowers. Weeks later, when the weather becomes a little kinder, the peach tree makes its appearance with vibrant colors. Then, at the peak of spring, when the whole world is watching, the cherry tree erupts in a dazzling display that everyone admires. And finally, when the heat begins to rise and the other trees have already dropped their petals, the humble apricot tree blooms quietly at its own pace. 4 trees, 4 distinct moments, 4 forms of beauty. This is the central concept of Oubaitori. The word itself is made up of the Japanese kanji for these four trees. O for the cherry, Bai for the plum, To for the peach, and Ri for the apricot. The lesson that Japanese sages drew from this simple observation of nature is so powerful it could change your life today. The plum tree doesn't look at the cherry tree with envy for blooming later and getting all the attention in spring. The cherry tree doesn't feel inferior because the plum tree was strong enough to endure the winter and bloom first. No tree tries to speed up its process to catch up to the one next to it. No tree apologizes for taking its time. They simply absorb the nutrients from the earth, trust their own seed, and bloom exactly when they are meant to. Not a minute early, not a minute late. But we humans have forgotten this fundamental rule of biology. We have created a system where we force an apricot to bloom in winter and call it a failure when it doesn't. We judge a cherry tree for not bearing fruit like a peach tree. The philosophy of Oubaitori teaches us that comparing yourself to another person is the most absurd act of psychological violence you can commit against yourself. Because you are measuring your progress with someone else's biological clock. You are judging your chapter 2 against the chapter 20 of the person you see online. Maybe you are a plum tree, designed to endure the hardest, coldest stages of life and emerge stronger when no one else can. Or maybe you are an apricot, and your best moment will come later in life when you have gathered the necessary wisdom, long after others have stopped blooming. The problem isn't who you are. The problem is that you are trying to bloom in the wrong season.
We understand the logic of the trees perfectly. Yet when we look in the mirror, we demand the impossible. Think about the last time you felt truly miserable about your progress in life. Chances are that feeling didn't come from your own failures. It came from looking at someone else's success. We live in an era of hypervisibility. For the first time in human history, you can open a glowing rectangle in your hand and instantly compare your behind-the-scenes reality with the highly edited, filtered, and curated highlight reels of 8 billion other people. This is the poison of false competition. Society has convinced you that life is a zero-sum game. That if someone your age buys a house, starts a successful business, or finds the perfect partner, somehow they have taken something away from you. That their early spring means you are stuck in an eternal winter. But let's look at this with cold logic. When you try to copy someone else's timeline, you are not only destined to fail, you are actively choosing a life of misery. Why? Because you are ignoring your own soil, your own climate, and your own roots. Maybe that 25-year-old millionaire you envy had financial support you never had. Maybe they sacrificed their mental health and every single relationship in their life to get there. Maybe they are a peach tree, designed to bloom early, but fade just as quickly. And yet, you, with your unique experiences, your specific traumas, and your hidden talents, are trying to force yourself to bloom exactly like them. It is a psychological suicide. When you constantly measure yourself against others, you trigger a state of chronic stress.
Your brain interprets their success as a threat to your own survival. You stop making decisions based on what you actually want or need, and start making decisions based on panic. You take a job you hate just to look successful on LinkedIn. You buy things you don't need to keep up with people you don't even like. You rush into relationships because you feel the clock ticking. You become exhausted, bitter, burnt out. Not because you aren't capable of achieving greatness, but because you are exhausting all your energy trying to be a cherry tree when you were born to be a magnificent plum tree. The truth that the Oubaitori philosophy forces us to accept is deeply uncomfortable, yet incredibly liberating. You are not in a race with anyone else. The track you are running on is completely empty. It's just you and your own potential. The only metric that actually matters is whether you are growing stronger roots today than you had yesterday.
So how do we stop the cycle? How do we actually practice Oubaitori in a world designed to make us feel inadequate? It starts with 3 quiet but radical decisions. First, you must prune your digital garden. If seeing someone else's success makes you feel like a failure, it is time to look away. Mute the accounts that trigger your anxiety. Unfollow the invisible timelines. You cannot water your own roots if you are constantly staring at your neighbor's branches. Protect your focus at all costs. Second, identify your current season. Be brutally honest with yourself. Are you in a season of winter, where your only job is to heal, learn, and gather strength in silence? Or are you in a season of spring, ready to execute and show your work to the world? Once you accept your true season, the urge to sprint alongside others simply vanishes. And third, redefine what a bloom looks like for you. Success doesn't have to be a $1 million company or a perfect marriage by age 30. Sometimes blooming is finally establishing a healthy boundary. Sometimes it's getting out of debt. Sometimes it's just surviving a really dark week and finding the courage to try again on Monday. The plum, the peach, the cherry, and the apricot do not compete. They just exist in complete surrender to their own nature. You have your own timeline, your own unique set of conditions. Stop rushing the process. Your spring will come exactly when it is meant to hit. If this philosophy brought you peace today, consider walking this path with us. Subscribe to the channel, and let's continue cultivating a stronger mind together. Until next time.